This is Bob and Deb. We're not at Serenity Hill. We are at, I know you probably can't read that, we are at the Homeplace 1850's in the Land Between the Lakes area. We rode the bike down, beautiful day, and this is one of the places that we love to visit. And we'll go on into the museum here, the interpretive center. We'll pay our way, and then we'll go in and maybe share a little bit of this with you. Through the double doors. Through the double doors and into a different world. Well, that kind of ruins the ambiance. I don't think that's how they did hay in the 1850's. What do you think? And it's, as you can see, it's a beautiful setting here. Walking the trail along next to the hill. I really wasn't expecting to hear tractors in the background, but that's okay. And this is one of the old barns that they've got out here. This is the old mule barn. Well, that's pretty amazing. They didn't bother to chink it like they would a house. Gate's open, so I guess I can go in. Got the old split rail fence. And boy, that's some kind of rake. This is a pitchfork. That's interesting how that's made. They just took that stick. Looks like it had a knot in it. Maybe they carved that down and just split it out and separated it out. Put a metal piece in there to keep it separated. Made a fork out of it. That's some kind of rake there. And notice the handles. They didn't go to Walmart and buy those, did they? Okay, yeah. And then inside we see all the harnesses they would use for the mules. All the different tack. Well, that's pretty amazing. And then looks like they keep hay in here as well. And that's amazing when you think that back in the late 1800s or so that they carved that all out with axes. And you can see all the marks in it from hand hewing the logs with their axes. Pretty interesting. And then of course over here, the mules. Yeah, Missouri is famous for its mules. You notice how the head looks, the body looks a lot like a horse, Debbie, but the head looks really different. That's because the mother is a horse mare, and its father would have been a donkey. What they call the jack is the donkey. And I guess the reason why they started doing that is they are bigger boned and a little stronger, and they can handle heat better than horses do. And so they developed those to use for draft animals. I guess instead of walking across the yard, we'll go up the sidewalk. This is such an interesting design. Of course, all the shake, the wood shake, probably cedar shakes, shingles on it. Just an absolutely beautiful place. Hello.
Hi. Where y'all from?
Oh,
Missouri.
Donovan, Missouri.
Have y'all been up here before? Yes.
Yeah, it's been years ago. What in the world are you hanging okra for?
They would have tried some just because it didn't seed, but they did not need this much seed, I tell you. You know how okra is.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What we're gonna do is make Christmas ornaments. No.
Out of okra.
Out of okra. And some for Halloween too. We just would paint the body of the okra white, like a ghost, and put two black eyes, so it'll be nice. It's gonna be cute. So yeah, so that's why we are letting our okra get bigger than what it'd be back then. They would have picked it about this long. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because you get it this big, boy, that stuff's hard to eat.
You can't eat it.
You can't eat it. It'd be too tough.
And they wouldn't let it get bigger than that because they couldn't have eaten any of it. That, you know, we didn't have this. So if you got a cavity, you couldn't get it fixed. So at a certain point, it would start hurting, and so you're just going to pull it. So you lost a tremendous.
Man, I can't get over how big the logs in this house are.
I know it's tulip poplar, which of course what that tree is right there.
Wow.
The other tree's tulip poplar too, but it got hit by a lightning, so it's kind of pitiful.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just not enough cedar around here, so they need some cedar.
Yeah.
There isn't cedar here.
You know, and this is what amazes me too, is you take a look at this and in all the axe marks and everything from hewing this by hand. And it's
Now,
just
see, when this house was originally built in the latter part of the 1830s, early 1840s,
yeah, you can see all the nail holes in it.
Yeah, the vertical siding helped shed the water better, it protected the wood,
Okay.
and also it made it look like you were living in a frame house.
A real house.
Very expensive house.
Yeah.
Frame house. This is a cheap house, so it. I mean, this part is so protected here in the breezeway. The logs are just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, but nowadays, the logs that they use in log cabins nowadays are maybe half this size because you just don't find trees this big.
So in the summertime, they lived out on the porches. That's their living room, dining room, and bedroom. And in the wintertime, they moved inside the house. So the house is designed for long, hot summers. So it's got more doors and windows than you normally would see, which extends
Yeah, 'cause
the
it gets.
amount of time you can actually use this room.
Yeah, because it's in the whitewashing on the walls.
Whitewashing did three things. One was it, you know, if you just shut, they didn't have any lamps because coal oil wasn't one lamp. And if you shut one door on the bright sunshiny day and look at this room, if you've got whitewash, what you're seeing is it brightens the room up. It gives you more light. So that was the primary. You never would have painted it with a different color. It's going to be white. The other thing is to help control bugs. And the other thing, you have recipes or whatever your recipe was. So you can make it, but what you wanted in the long run was paint, because whitewash flakes. So it would have just be covered down all the time. So it didn't take long before they would paint around. And you wanted to put paint up.
Well, because to be able to tell your neighbors that you painted your walls instead of
I
whitewashing.
got this at the store in town. So this room in the wintertime is your living room and dining room. Oh, okay. So when you first built the house, this is the original. So the kitchen, what you're trying to do is get that stove away from your living space. Because if it's closer to that room, you can't use that room in the wintertime. It's going to be too hot. So what you do is you push it as far away as possible. And then if you can, you build a breezeway there. And the breezeway, of course, gives you more space, but it whips away all of the cooking smells. Think of cooking cabbage. You don't want that already. All right? So, you know, it wicks away the unpleasant stuff. And of course, I mean, poor people smell their food, but richer people don't smell their food. But yeah, there's so many things that you did trying to impress people. And really still do.
I've come here. Last time we were here, it was in the morning. They were getting, and I guess the ladies were cooking lunch.
Yeah, you would have, it would have been called dinner.
Oh, dinner. Excuse me.
Yeah, they would have only been cooking in the mornings. You didn't cook the rest of the day. You took, their stove is over at that point.
Because it's just so hot.
No, you just, it's a
You-
cook stove.
Uh-huh.
And if you use it a lot, you'll ruin the metal.
Oh, okay.
Cast iron, you can't just keep it going on forever, you break down the metal.
Yeah, it'll get brittle and just start coming apart on you.
So it's a cook stove, so you gotta, start, in the wintertime, somebody immediately started a fire in there and started a fire in here. Kids are all coming down, you fix breakfast, they eat breakfast, everybody's gone at that point to do their chores, whatever they are. And you immediately start working on the primary meal, which is dinner.
Okay.
So hot that if you sweat it and it melts all the feathers together, you have to throw it away.
That's neat how the floor joists for the second floor are notched into the logs there.
He's building a house, if you can tell. That's why he's so fascinated.
So this room on this side is the parlor. It's a fancy.
Oh, this is the fancy. We're going to the fancy part of the house.
So that family did not has left in this living room. I just was always need to clean. This whole thing's gonna be a cloud. Full of furniture and all this stuff. This thing's always gonna need to clean. If somebody drops by to visit with you in the wintertime, you can wipe it out at that time. But you don't put a fire in there if you don't need it. Because you don't need your menfolk cutting firewood all the time. You know, our ability to constantly keep everyone in the house warm was not something they needed back then. They only needed to warm up the room.
Oh yeah. Oh, you'll love these steps, Debbie.
Yes.
My and they must not have had size 12 feet either.
They had big feet, small feet. They just didn't have the ability to put everything.
This is worse than the basement stairs in our church. Yeah. Okay, so this is one of the rooms where the kids would have slept, and lots of spare parts. And I love these old chairs. And you notice this one is not, it's not painted. And these doorways. Okay. This is the doorway. Hopefully I can get it. I'm 6'1", and you see how low that doorway. This is what I absolutely love. Now they were high tech. They had glass windows, but look at how that glass is all swirled and everything. That's some neat stuff. And it's definitely dark in here. We zigged and zagged. Mm-hmm.
That's just the salt.
That's just from
buildup
salt
in
buildup.
Years and years and years of use. The other, so you would put it in there with the salt, and then about 19 days you squeeze the meat, and if it's still spongy, you have not gotten enough. The salt hadn't taken out enough of the moisture.
Oh, okay.
So you leave it in there until it's ready. You have to know when it's ready. Somebody
Yeah.
would have taught you that, and then when it's ready is when you hung it,
Yeah.
and the smoking gave it. So I'm not gonna let it shut. But if I pull this off, then what's gonna happen? I've got it too propped. It's going
Yeah,
to start.
that's-
The weight is dropping in there.
Yeah, I was gonna close the door. So you can't go leaving your smokehouse open so the dogs can come in and help themselves.
No, it's making meat sores. And you would slaughter and preserve one pig per family member per
All right, so now we'll continue our tour on. This is a little wet weather creek stream that runs through here. And they used to have a spring house here, but they got rid of it because the spring quit running. So they took it out hoping to get the spring going again. And right here, let's see if I can shield this a little bit, is their little orchard where they have some heritage apple and pear trees. Looks like they planted some new ones. And then just across the way there is their garden. And I asked a lady last time we were here, why the fence around the garden? They said, well, because you've got ducks and geese and cattle and sheep roaming around, and you've got a lot of deer in the area, and that's why you've got all that fence. To keep them out. And then this is the wood shop, which I'm really interested in seeing. And again, this is one of those buildings that used to be out here in this land between the lakes area, and they brought it in here and rebuilt it. That's how the guy would sit on this. And you use your foot to clamp down on the wood, and then you can use your draw knife to take something square or rectangular and actually make it kind of roundish. That's the size. And then it's like this would be one of the tools that they would have used for hewing these logs. Oh, she said you're going to be out here fixing stuff.
Oh yeah. I am working on fixing a chair here.
Oh, nice. I love this.
Yeah, this chair's got a lot of problems. The first and most major problem is that this chair's actually split down the middle. So I've had to stabilize that. So this was the original crack. And if you were out here a couple hours ago, you would have heard a whole lot of profanity.
Trying to get that on there?
No,
or-
once I had put it in, another crack opened up.
Oh no.
So that's what I'm in the process of repairing right now. So,
Projects breed projects.
yes.
Oh, that's an interesting clamp to hold the thing together.
Yes, this is pretty typical. All wood construction, just to apply a little pressure.
Oh, even the threaded parts would.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm carving out the place where I'm going to put this insert to close up that second crack that opened up. So it's easier to start with your bow tie first, and then make the hole and widen it, rather than make a hole and then try to match it with a piece of wood.
No, what's actually easier is if you have a CNC router and
Yeah.
they make it look.
Those two other pieces, is that metal or is that wood?
No,
That's
that's
wood
just-
in
That's
there.
wood, yes.
Oh wow.
That's what I'm inserting. So this is a type of joinery. And that's really the only reliable fix that you can make on a piece like this. They had glue in the 1850s, but it would deteriorate. Just a little bit. So
By hand.
yes. So surviving on this chair, I've got my lower back support here, and I've got the upper support
That came
there.
from the original chair,
Yeah.
and you got to
And
make
then
the rest of it.
These spindles come up. This is not one from this chair. This is one from another chair. But I'll have to turn these out by hand. So what I'll do is I'll go grab a piece of firewood from my stack over there, and I'll put that here in the shave horse. And that will hold that in place. All I got to do is place my foot on that pedal, and it keeps this from moving. Then I can use my draw knife, and I can take that rough piece of wood and I can actually pre-round it. And then when it's actually round, I can take it inside and put it on my spring pole lathe, where I can get it actually round.
We're talking several lots of hours.
Several
or
hours and
days.
several thousand steps.
Yep. And see, I'm really interested in the spring pole lathe because I'm in the process of building one.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, I can show you how it works. I mean, it's not a difficult kind of situation that we've got here. I want to trade out this piece of wood in here. So somebody was trying to help me out and do some work here by making one, but
And see, mine is from a solid oak beam, 4 inches thick, that I cut the slot in. Mm-hmm.
and this is not what a professional would have been using. A professional would have had a flywheel, which would have made this a lot easier and faster.
So it spun in one direction. He'd just get the flywheel spinning, and
Yeah,
it would continue to have its inertia.
that would save that. So this is one that we use just for demonstration. I don't have something on there. So you put a few bends in there, and it's all really based on the size of the wood that you're using. If my hole was fine enough, you gotta turn it so it takes the pressure off. There we go.
See, he just got a pole up there that wants to try to straighten up.
You get about turn and a half out of it.
Oh my goodness.
All it takes. So a few hours and several thousand steps later, you'll actually have a real piece of wood.
Which is why they weren't chunky like we are today.
Right. They didn't have to work out; they just worked.
Yes, it just worked. But
So-
this is what they would have used to make square things round until some smart guy came up with a way to put an electric motor on it. And now instead of having to up and down, and you just work it while it's rotating this way, you can work it the whole time.
The unfortunate thing with the spring pole lathe is the backspin. So you make a cut going this way, but then you got the backspin. So if you're still riding, it's dragging along, and you're unsharpening your chisel.
Yeah.
Oh no, right.
So I'm constantly having to go back and resharpen these chisels.
Yeah, you have to get that motion right where you just back off just a
Right.
hair.
You got different chisels, huh?
Yep.
And you gotta shove it in there every turn.
Pretty much.
Mhm.
Kind of get a rhythm, and a lot of it's just tighten and loosen your hand,
Uh-huh.
and it just gives you that little pop back. So
I need this job. The one I'm doing, I stand still all day.
Well, hey,
I am
you
so
can
out of shape.
you can run the treadle for me.
I'm gonna have.
I think he's actually using one out there on the beach.
Thank you very much for sharing.
Oh, and you have to maintain all the farm implements too, huh?
No shortage of broken things here.
Oh, I know. And every time you start one project, it
I
breeds
find
another
him
one.
another one.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Daddy.
Yeah. Now, what's the?
So that is a furnace.
Is a furnace?
Small scale furnace. They would not have had that on a farm like this.
Okay.
That is, I built that to demonstrate the larger furnaces that were here.
Yeah, there's one just down the road, one of the old iron smelting furnaces.
Most complete. So that is a small scale version of those big ones.
And what was that used for?
Smelting iron ore. So, and I do the same thing there. So the scaffold that's sitting next to it, I'll take the bellows out of the blacksmith shop, hang them from there, and then we'll run a pipe into the side of that little chimney furnace there. We seal up the bottom, and we will start loading charcoal and iron ore into that. And then we'll pump those bellows for 8 or 9 hours, and over the course of those 8 or 9 hours, we'll be constantly loading in more charcoal, more iron ore, and it'll all melt down. Then at at the end of the day, we can open up that bottom panel and extract the iron off. It's actually usable metal at that point.
Wow.
Do they use it for farm implements?
So take that pig iron and we ship that to another plate, another furnace, where they would heat it up and fold it over, forge weld that together, and stretch it out. And that would then become wrought iron, worked iron, metal that came out of that furnace.
Wow.
So everything in that knife except for the copper came from here on the farm. That's local walnut for the handle, and of course the metal came out of the furnace.
Wow.
I'm carving out my space here.
Oh.
I'm using that to cut my.
Yeah, you
Oh,
don't
like
you
what
don't
you
use
do.
a metal. Yeah, you don't use a metal hammer with the chisel.
Right. I don't want to bang it up. So just a few knocks, and then once I kind of go around, I can take a smaller chisel and I can cut out those spaces that I just cut.
Of course, that wood's nice and dry and seasoned.
It is.
It's probably nice, dry, seasoned oak, so it's hard as can be.
I believe this is poplar.
Oh, a poplar?
So this is soft.
Okay.
So I don't have to work too hard to get it out of there.
Okay.
But this chair is actually a reproduction. So these
Yeah.
nuts are getting hungry.
As long as they're not trying to chase us off.
Oh, they're too busy eating bugs out of the grass. Yeah. They're used to people around. They grow some stuff in here. And then that's the tobacco barn back there. You see one of their old plows. An iron body and or maybe steel, and then wood handles. Always some kind of projects to fix. Oh, you don't want to see the hog pen?
We are.
Well, I am. Not much makes them stop eating. Deb says, I just got up here and you're going down. This is interesting. Building at the side of a hog lot came from the property owned previously by Allie Harper. Crib would have originally been pre-Civil War vintage. It was used to store corn and feed for the hogs. Wow. What is your trough empty, hog?
Apparently.
Sitting there in front of his trough, complaining about it being empty. Well, they aren't growing any tobacco. They used to grow more crop stuff here, but they probably cut back on the number of people. But 20 years ago, they used to grow tobacco in that plot back there. And then when they harvested the tobacco, you could see it hanging in the tobacco barn. In fact, they've got some in the barn right now. And this would be what they call I think burley tobacco or whatever. This is some old stuff. But they would hang the tobacco off the rafters there, and then they would light a fire down in these troughs here. They'd start a fire, start some coals, and just let those coals smoke. Close the barn up. That's why the walls are so dark. And it would smoke cure the tobacco. And it was that dark, what they call, I think they call it burley tobacco. It's the stuff they use for making pipe tobacco and chewing tobacco. We're going back across the little creek that comes through here. Okay, this is the chicken coop where they put the chickens at night. They roost up on those sticks there, and then there's their laying boxes. And then this is the old single pen house that they've got with the lean-to added onto it. Oh, there's the chickens. The ducks sure keep their pond muddied up, don't they? Well, those are beautiful chickens. Aren't those beautiful? Yeah, that's a little more difficult than going down to Joanne Fabric, isn't it? So it's got 4 pedals, and it shifts everything up and down. And back and forth. Wow. That's... Yeah.
But as you can tell, it would be overkill for what I was working on.
Yeah, making something small.
Yeah. This, we oftentimes, we'll make scarves on it. You can almost see which section we use most regularly because of that darker middle. Because we frequently make scarves.
Okay. Oh, that was actually made on this loom?
Yes, it was. So is that one, which is much more complicated.
Yeah,
I was not prepared to do that. That's
Wow.
for sure.
So that pattern was made right on this loom.
Yep, just 4 petals.
Wow.
It's like no pressure, but don't forget where you are in the pattern.
Yeah, really. Yeah, for sure. Did you guys find the... Did you find the apples? Yes, they do have sheep. It's like nothing to see here. Go away. And then this is the sheep barn. You can tell they were shorter than me. Everything is built here. I have to duck my head under everything because look at that. So yeah, I have to duck my head under everything. And then we come back around, and that's that building right there is the corn crib where they would store corn. And then I think this building up here by or the buggy by it is the blacksmith shop. Boy, they were fancy. Look at that fancy buggy. Oh no, this is the corn crib. Guess the blacksmith shop was elsewhere. Used to store corn. And then this is their garden. You know, so they got the boards down there to keep stuff from coming underneath the fence. Keep the chickens and ducks out. And the sheep. And all this. And of course, it's September, so things are pretty much come to an end. Oh, they do have some tobacco in here. Got peppers and beans. Looks like I got some little Tabasco peppers and pumpkins and melons, tomatoes, and okra. Oh, have you ever seen okra in the wild? Yeah, these tall plants here are actually tobacco plants. They've let those grow up and go to seed. You'd normally harvest the leaves off of them earlier. This is okra. See how it grows just on a stem like that. That's a.
Some of that okra was when I visited Debbie down in Tennessee. Debbie's grandma. And of course it was fried.
Of course it was fried. Now, in past years, this whole garden plot was full, but in past years, they had more people here. So since this is a government-funded thing, I'm sure they've probably had some cutbacks in personnel, some budget cuts. But, I mean, that's a lot of work just in putting fence around that garden. And then we come back around and we're almost back to the house where we came in to start off. Got beautiful wildflowers all along the way. And that beautiful dog trot house. All right, so here we are, dog trot house in the background. Did you have a nice day?
I had a wonderful day.
Okay, and we hope you guys enjoyed our little jaunt down to 1850's Homeplace to see what it used to be like, and why this is one of our favorite places. And if you ever get a chance to come down here, certainly ought to. There's some neat people here and beautiful, beautiful places. All right, thanks for joining us. Talk to you later.